Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about one of the biggest challenges that intermediate English learners face. And honestly, one of the biggest challenges that even native speakers face. How to talk to a group of people in English. Whether it is a team meeting at work, a presentation in front of colleagues, a social gathering with people you barely know, or even just joining a conversation that is already happening between several people. Talking to a group is a completely different skill from talking to one person. And nobody ever teaches it properly. When you talk to one person, you have their full attention. You can read their face easily. You can pause, you can ask them to repeat, you can slow down, and nobody judges you. But when you are talking to a group, suddenly everything feels different. You feel like everyone is watching you. You feel like you cannot make mistakes. You feel like you need to be interesting and clear and confident all at the same time. And in a second language, that pressure can feel absolutely overwhelming. Today, we are going to break that down completely. We are going to look at the language, the structure, the techniques, and the mindset that will help you speak to any group of people in English with real confidence. Let us get into it. Part 1. Why talking to a group feels so different. Before we look at the language, let us understand the psychology. Because when you understand why it feels hard, it becomes much easier to manage. When you speak to a group, your brain perceives it as a higher stakes situation. More people means more potential judgment. More eyes means more pressure to perform. And in a second language, that pressure activates what language teachers call the affective filter. Basically, your brain goes into a kind of protective mode where it becomes harder to access the words and structures you already know. You freeze. You go blank. You lose your grammar. You speak faster than you should. Or you go completely silent and let someone else take over. This is not a sign that your English is bad. It is a sign that your brain is under pressure. And the solution is not just more grammar study. The solution is having the right tools and techniques so that even under pressure, you know exactly what to say and how to say it. That is what today is about. Part 2. The 3 types of group speaking situations. Not all group speaking situations are the same, and the language and approach you use should match the situation you are in. So let us define the 3 main types. The first type is informal group conversation. This is when you are with friends, at a social event, at a family gathering, or in any relaxed setting where multiple people are talking together. The goal here is to participate naturally, contribute to the conversation, share your thoughts, and feel like part of the group, rather than an outsider watching from the side. The second type is semi-formal group interaction. This includes team meetings at work, group discussions in a class or workshop, brainstorming sessions, or any situation where there is some structure but it is still conversational. Here you need to be clear and professional, but you still have the flexibility to be natural and relaxed. The third type is formal group speaking. This includes presentations, speeches, public speaking, leading a meeting, or addressing an audience. Here the structure is more rigid. You are usually the one speaking while others listen, and your language needs to be organized, clear, and confident. We are going to cover all 3 today. Part 3. How to join and contribute to an informal group conversation. This is something that many learners find incredibly difficult. You are standing with a group of people who are already talking. The conversation is moving fast. People are laughing, interrupting each other, finishing each other's sentences. And you are standing there nodding, smiling, but not actually saying anything. You want to say something, but you do not know how to get in. Here is the language you need to enter a group conversation naturally. To join in when you have something to add, use these phrases. Actually, I think the same thing. I was just thinking about that. You know what? That reminds me of something that happened to me recently. I completely agree with that. And I would also add that. Sorry to jump in, but I just wanted to say that I find this really interesting because that is such a good point. From my experience, I would say that these phrases do 2 things at once. They acknowledge what the other person just said, which shows you were listening, and they open the door for you to speak without feeling like you are interrupting rudely. To share your opinion in a group, use these. Personally, I think that, from my point of view, to be honest, I feel like, in my experience, I might be wrong, but I think these phrases signal to the group that you are about to give your perspective. They are soft and polite, but they are also clear. The group knows you have something to say and they will naturally give you space to say it. To keep yourself in the conversation when you need a moment to think, use these fillers. That is a really interesting question. Let me think about that for a second. Honestly, that is something I feel quite strongly about. Where do I even start? I have thought about this before actually. I think the key thing for me is, these phrases buy you time without making you look lost. They signal that you are engaged and thinking, not freezing. Part 4. How to speak in semi-formal group settings. Team meetings and group discussions require a slightly different set of skills. Here you need to be able to contribute ideas, respond to what others say, agree or disagree respectfully, and sometimes take control of the direction of the conversation. Here is the language you need. To introduce your idea or point in a meeting, I wanted to bring up something that I think is worth discussing. One thing I have been thinking about is, I have a suggestion if that is okay. Can I share a thought on that? I think there is an important point we have not touched on yet. To respond to someone else's idea. That is a great point and it connects to something I wanted to mention. I see what you are saying and I think you are right about that. I would just add that. I understand where you are coming from, but I think we also need to consider. Building on what you just said, I think we could also. I am not entirely sure I agree with that. Can I share a different perspective? To ask for clarification in a group setting. Sorry, could you say a little more about what you mean by that? Just to make sure I understand correctly, are you saying that? That is interesting. Could you give us an example of what that would look like? To summarize or wrap up your point. So basically what I am trying to say is, to put it simply, my main point is really just that. If I had to sum it up in one sentence, I would say, these phrases make you sound organized and articulate even when your thoughts are not perfectly formed yet. They give structure to what you are saying and make it easier for the group to follow you. Part 5. How to speak to a group formally. Presentations and public speaking. This is where many learners feel the most fear. Standing up in front of a group and speaking. But here is the truth. A formal presentation in English is actually easier than informal group conversation in one very important way. You are in control. You decide what to say, when to say it, and how long to speak. Nobody is going to interrupt you with a joke or change the subject on you. The structure is yours. The key to a strong presentation or formal group address in English is to use clear signposting language. Signposting means telling your audience where you are in your talk and where you are going next. It is like giving them a map so they never feel lost. Here is the language for each stage of a presentation. To open and greet the group. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Hello and welcome. It is great to see so many of you here. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. I really appreciate it. To introduce your topic. Today I am going to talk about, what I want to share with you today is, the focus of my talk today is going to be, I am here today to discuss something that I think is really important for all of us. To move from one point to the next. So now that we have covered that, let us move on to. The next thing I want to talk about is, this brings me to my second point, which is, moving on from there. To give an example. Let me give you a quick example of what I mean. To put this in concrete terms. Here is a real situation that illustrates this perfectly. Think about a time when you, to involve the audience and make it interactive. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Does anyone want to share? Has anyone here ever experienced something like that? What do you think about this? I am curious to know your perspective. Feel free to ask questions at any point. I want this to be a conversation, not a lecture. To conclude and close. So to bring everything together. In conclusion, what I really want you to take away from today is, thank you so much for your attention. I hope this has been useful. I am happy to take any questions now. Part 6. Real-life examples of group speaking in action. Let us now hear all of this in real situations. Situation 1. Joining a conversation at a social gathering. A group of people are talking about traveling. You hear someone say, I just got back from Portugal and it was absolutely incredible. And someone else responds, oh, I have always wanted to go there, what was the best part? And then you step in and say, you know what, sorry to jump in, but I actually went to Lisbon 2 years ago and I completely agree. The food alone is worth the trip. Have you been to the south of the country as well? Because the Algarve is on a completely different level. You joined naturally. You acknowledged what was said. You added your own experience. And you asked a question to keep it going. Situation 2, contributing in a team meeting. Your manager asks the group, so what do you all think about the new project timeline? Is it realistic? You say, I wanted to bring up something on that actually. I think the timeline is ambitious and I completely understand why we need to move fast. But from what I have seen in similar projects, the testing phase almost always takes longer than we expect. I am not saying we cannot do it. I just think it might be worth building in a small buffer so we are not in a difficult position later. What does everyone else think? That contribution is confident, balanced, respectful of the team, and ends with an invitation for others to respond. Situation 3, opening a presentation at work. You stand up in front of your team and you say, "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Today, I want to talk about something that I think has a direct impact on how we work every single day. Our internal communication system. Over the next 15 minutes, I am going to share what I have observed, what the data tells us, and what I believe we can do differently starting this week. I would love for this to be a conversation, so please feel free to jump in at any point." Strong opening, clear structure, inviting tone. That immediately builds trust with your audience. Situation 4, handling a question you are not sure about during a group discussion. Someone asks you a difficult question in front of everyone and you do not have a perfect answer. You say, "That is actually a really important question and I want to make sure I give you a proper answer rather than just saying the first thing that comes to mind. From what I know, I would say that the situation is more complex than it might appear. But I think the key factor here is probably the budget constraints we are working with. I would love to look into this a bit more and come back to you with something more concrete. Would that work?" That answer is honest, thoughtful, and professional. It shows maturity and it actually builds more trust than pretending you have an answer you do not have. Part 7. The 5 most important habits for group speaking. Beyond the language itself, here are the 5 habits that will transform how you speak to groups in English. The first habit is to slow down. When we are nervous, we speak faster. Faster speech means more mistakes, less clarity, and more anxiety. Consciously slow your pace. Pause between sentences. Give your words room to breathe. Pause does not make you look uncertain. It makes you look thoughtful. The second habit is to make eye contact with different people. In a group, do not stare at one person or look at the floor. Move your eyes around the group. When you look at someone, they feel included. And when people feel included, they are more likely to listen to you and respond positively. The third habit is to listen actively before you speak. The best group communicators are not the ones who talk the most. They are the ones who listen carefully and then say something that is genuinely relevant to what was just discussed. When you listen well, your contribution always lands better. The fourth habit is to embrace imperfection. You will make grammar mistakes when you speak to a group. Everyone does. Native speakers make mistakes in group conversations all the time. The goal is not perfection. The goal is communication. If your message gets across, you have succeeded. Do not let the fear of a grammar mistake stop you from participating. The fifth habit is to prepare your first sentence. The hardest moment in any group speaking situation is the very first moment when you open your mouth. After that, it gets easier. So prepare your opening. Know the first sentence you are going to say before you say it. That single habit removes the blank mind feeling and gives you the momentum to keep going. Final part, a message for you. Speaking to a group of people in English is a skill. It is not a talent you are born with. It is not something that only extroverts can do. It is a learnable, practicable, developable skill. And like every skill, it gets easier every single time you do it. The first time you join a group conversation in English, it will feel uncomfortable. The second time, it will feel a little less uncomfortable. By the 10th time, it will start to feel normal. By the 50th time, it will feel natural. That is how skills work. You do not wait until you feel confident to start. You start, and confidence comes from doing. Here is your challenge for today. Think of one group situation you are going to be in this week. A meeting, a class, a social gathering, anything. Pick one phrase from today's lesson and use it. Just one. I wanted to bring up something. Or actually that reminds me. Or to put it simply, just one phrase used once in a real situation will do more for your English than an hour of studying alone. You can do this. I believe in your progress completely. Thank you so much for watching. If this lesson helped you, please share it and subscribe so you never miss a new lesson. Leave a comment below and tell me, what is the group speaking situation you find most difficult? A presentation, a meeting, a social event? Tell me and I will make sure we cover it in a future lesson. See you in the next lesson.